Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. Each episode will bring you a new topic or interview related to brain health and wellness as part of my mission to help you on the path to a healthier, happier brain. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is the Chris Singleton. Chris is a former professional athlete drafted by the Chicago Cubs in 2017. Following the loss of his mother in a racially motivated mass shooting, Chris has now become an inspirational speaker and best-selling author who has shared his message of unity and racial reconciliation with NFL and NBA teams, as well as multiple Fortune 500 companies across the country. He shares with over 100 organizations and over 30,000 students annually and resides with his spouse, Mariana, and 3 children in Charleston, South Carolina. Thanks, Chris, for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Glad we can make it happen.
Yeah. So I met you back last fall when you got to give a presentation at my child's school and then opened it up for the community in the evening. And I loved your story, which is why I wanted to get you on here. So I'm so grateful for you coming on. Uh, I like to start off with people's backstory, kind of where did you come from? And you were drafted by the Chicago Cubs. So where did that love of baseball come from?
Yeah, well, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Both of my parents were college athletes. My dad played college football. My mom ran track in college, and so as a little kid, I played all sports. But something drew me towards baseball because I met my really, really good friend playing, and he loved baseball. And so, we just hit it off, and that became our thing, right? We started when we were 3 years old, and played up until in our 20s. So had lots of fun playing the sport, but that's where the love of it came from.
Awesome. And every child's dreams playing sports is to get drafted into the pros. What was it like when you got drafted to the Cubs?
Yeah, but when I got drafted, I'll say it was filled with emotions. You worked for something your whole life, and you know you're pretty good, but you never know unless you're like a high first round draft pick. You don't really know when you're gonna get drafted, if you're gonna get drafted. So um, that whole moment was something that you dream about, and I'm just grateful that I had that opportunity to play.
Yeah. So then where did the motivation come to switch from baseball to speaking?
Yeah, so even when I was playing baseball, there was a tragedy that happened at my church, as you talked about in the bio. And so after this tragedy happened, there was an ESPN documentary that was done on me and my mom. After the documentary aired, I was on the Today Show, do the first pitch for the Yankees, a bunch of different things in the media about this mission of unity, right? And after losing my mom to a self-proclaimed white supremacist, I said to myself, well, what can I do to be a part of the solution? And I think after my third year playing in college is when I got drafted. But during that off season of my second year playing in college, I started to get awards, different hero awards for keeping our city together and trying to keep our country intact, of loving one another regardless of what we look like on the outside. And I got these awards, and they would ask me to speak. And at first I thought it was weird, like why can't I just get an award and say thank you? But they want you to get an award and share some wisdom after. And so after, my first couple of times of doing it, try not to puke because I was so nervous. I realized, man, I have a message that I think I need to share. And so I started sharing that message. And it led from, doing it 1 or 2 times a month to, I get about 20 to 30 requests a month right now. So it's been a blessing, but that's kind of how the transition of baseball, because once I got released by the Cubs, I figured I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I could have kept chasing the dream of playing with a different team and trying to keep going, but I said, man, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was speaking and sharing this message.
Yeah, that's the way you did that. Not everybody can come through that kind of experience with a positive outcome and say, what can I do to be the change? Where did that motivation come from that kept you in that positive thinking?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been a kind of person that um, thinks, hey, yes, this happened. What can I do to help out? Or what can I do to solve it? Or what can I do? Like, when I see a problem, I want to figure out a solution. And initially, it was a way, just a way to honor my mom. That was the only reason why I was doing it, just a way to honor her and keep her legacy alive. And as time has gone on, man, I just see the power in this message that I share. And so initially, it was just something that was therapeutic for me, that could get me to keep sharing my mom's name and our church family's legacy. And then as time went on, it became more mission filled.
Yeah. And I should have, before that last question, I should have asked, what were you doing that got all the awards and all the attention?
Yeah, I think well, number one, I forgave my mother's killer, which was something that people were like, "Man, how in the world do you do that? Why do you do that?" And all these different things. And I definitely believe that it was placed in my heart, um, something out of this world placed forgiveness on my heart. But I also realized how important um, working through our emotions is, right? Because there's different stages of grief, of course, but if we never get to a point of moving forward, then we'll be stuck there forever. And so for me, forgiveness was a part of moving forward. Doesn't mean I forget about what happened or anything like that. But just being able to move forward in my life and saying, man, maybe I can stop the next person, or I can try to stop the next person from doing something like what happened to my mom and my church family. So that's what I did, and that's why the awards started coming in. And once they started coming in, I started to share, and I feel like I definitely was pretty naturally gifted with the ability to share a story, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I used to get so nervous, just like most people do when you first start speaking in front of people. As time went on, I got more comfortable, and then yeah, that's kind of how it led to things are.
Yeah. I loved how just open and personable you were when you came into the presentation at our school. And you have a couple things that you do at the beginning of every presentation, I think, that you had us do when we're all in person. That was kind of unique to just the idea of bringing everyone together.
Yeah, I try to do that every time too. And what you're speaking about is when I asked everybody to get up and give someone a hug. Is that what you're speaking of? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So and this just happened organically. One day I was speaking maybe like 5 years or so ago, and I was like, man, what can I do to really champion this mission of love? Like that's the road that I'm on. And I started thinking, well, why don't we just hug somebody? And it's kind of weird and it's awkward, but then I realized there's so many people that have never gotten a hug from somebody that looks different than them, or people are really going through life and they need a hug, right? They just need somebody to say, "Hey, I got you. I love you." Even if it's for 2 seconds, you have no idea who they are, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes you give somebody a hug and you just feel them melt in your arms because they really, really needed it. And after doing it, I said, "Man, I want to do this every single time I speak now," and that's been the tradition. I do it every single time.
I love it. I'm a hugger, so it was great for me. And we are put on this earth to love each other. That's what we're here for, right? So that's a great way to start everything off when you're talking is just let's share that love. That-
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. There's some people that are definitely not huggers, and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know," and I'll say, "You know what? At least give somebody a fist pound or something, right?" And then they'll do that. But there's some people that are like me who will, open up for a hug, and they say, "You know what? He wants a hug so bad. I guess I'll give him one," and then they finally give into it. So it's all in good fun, but there's definitely deep meaning behind it. I think about my mother's killer, and the fact that his mission was to start a racial war in this country. He wanted people to hate each other so much that we'd start a war in the country. And I thought about, man, if I would have been able to give this guy a hug, looking different than he does, and connecting with him, and getting to know him, and him getting to know me, I think that he would have thought a lot differently about people that look different than he does.
I would hope so. Yeah. I have never had those kind of feelings for people, so I don't understand where it comes from when people have so much hate in their heart because I was raised to we just love people. That's what we do. So I think being able to spread that and forgive someone who does that, that's a remarkable thing in itself.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I was definitely blessed as well to have parents and grandparents that were teaching love. But, not everybody's that fortunate, and I feel like it's not an obligation, but it's an opportunity for us who were raised the right way, who were taught to love people, to keep pushing that throughout our country and the world. Uh, because unfortunately, there are a lot of there's I think there's 400,000 kids in the U.S. that need adoption, And so, like, when I hear those numbers, I think there are 400,000 kids that probably aren't getting the love that they need at home to teach them the correct thing. And hopefully they get it from their teachers at school. But if not, then they're not getting it from anywhere. And so I feel like it's an opportunity for me to share the good news and share, hey, let's love one another, regardless of what we look like on the outside. It's all about, we're all human beings. We all are flawed, right? None of us are perfect, but we're a lot more alike than we are different.
Absolutely. If you take off the packaging, we're all the same on the inside. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So as I mentioned, you came and spoke at our kids' high school, and you in the introduction, I gave examples of the Fortune 500 companies, NFL, NBA. Can you tell us about some of those speaking engagements? Are they different when you go to each one, different focus? Are they, um, what can you tell us?
Yeah, good question. I'd say for me, last year I did 150 engagements. Okay, so that was a lot of travel. But out of those 150 engagements, it's crazy because exactly half of them, so 75, were within education. So schools, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, even just doing it in that sense, right? You have to have a different way of sharing that message, because the way that I'll speak to your a high school is totally different than I speak to a group of second graders. Now, the mission of teaching unity and love might be the same, but the way that I share has got to be completely different. Same thing with corporate America, right? When I'm doing a lot of diversity work, the way that I share stuff there and the examples I use and stories I share won't be the same as when I'm speaking at a high school in Minnesota. It's totally different. That's kind of the thought process behind, hey, does it all look the same, or do you switch it up? You kind of have to switch it up, or else it won't be uh there won't be takeaways for that specific audience if you're just talking over them and not really to them on a heart level. I just got off a call with a company from the UK, and the problems that they're faced with and things that they're doing are a little bit different than over here. And so I think it has to be personalized, but that general message of love and unity that I share is always there. Just the way I share it'll be different.
Yeah. Yep. Do you have a favorite group to talk to?
Oh yeah, it's not even close. My favorite group to talk to is educators. So if I had to quit every other audience and only speak to one, it would be teachers. There are so many schools across the country. Teachers are like, obviously everybody knows they're overworked, underpaid, unfortunately, right? But I call teachers generational curse breakers because they have the power to break generational curses for the students that they get to teach. A kid may come in there with and the teacher gives them the confidence to be the first person in their family to graduate college. Or the teacher comes in there and they're the only loving person that student ever sees, right? Or the teacher comes in there and says, hey, even though mom or dad might be addicted to a substance, like, you're going to break that chain. It stops with you. And so for me, thinking about global impact, there's no better person than a teacher. And I was an education major, so I'm a little biased, right? And so there's no better person on this earth that can make an impact other than a teacher, because, like we mentioned earlier, some people have great parents, and some people have parents that are doing the best they can, but missing in a lot of different places. And, it's not the teacher's job, but I'll tell you what, there are some teachers that are filling those spaces, and there are some great human beings in our world because of their teachers.
Hmm. Agreed. I taught nursing school for a while, and even in early college years, those they're still kids. They still need mentors. They still need somebody to help them learn what it is to be a good human being. And I loved it. On graduation day, I would always have students that would then send me Facebook requests or social media requests, because at that point they could be my friends because they weren't my students anymore. And it always made me feel good when I got those, because I knew I made an impact on somebody. And that's a feeling that you don't get with anything else.
No, and you changed their lives too. Like, that feeling of, hey, I made an impact here, means a lot. And in the work that I do, man, I speak to middle schools, high schools, colleges, all over, and I get the most responses, the most messages after middle school engagement. And I think that that age group right there is when you want to be cool. You want to have what everybody else has. That's like that age group, right? You don't want to stand out too much because you don't want to stick out, right? You want to fit in with everybody else, but also you've learned enough to, like, if you're going through some trauma or going through something real, like, you're at the age where, hey, I know what's going on now, right? I've moved houses 6 times in the last 6 years. Like, I know. I'm 14 years old now. I'm in the eighth grade. I know something's going on with my dad when he's out. Like, I people understand, they're understanding this, and they don't always know how to process it in middle school. And so I think that age group right there, I get tons of messages from kids after my engagement just saying, "Hey, Chris, I know what it feels like to lose a parent," or, "Hey, Chris, I'm going through this, man. I'd love to get some feedback. I'd love to get some advice." And so that I love seeing the impact that's made for sure.
Yeah, they're so impressionable at that age. You can make or break them at that point. My kids just got out of middle, or two of our kids just got out of middle school, got into the high school, and those ages are so impressionable. I guess is the only word I can think of with that.
Yeah, middle school's like a jungle. The hormones are kicking in. You're starting to test the waters a little bit more, and you're saying stuff you probably wouldn't have said before, and so everything is going on in middle school for sure. That's why it's a pivotal time.
Yeah, and do you then respond to all of those messages yourself?
I do, yeah. So I have a rule. My rule is that I will always message back. I won't answer your call because some kids will try to video call me through Instagram, like video chat or Facebook video chat and all this stuff. So I don't answer the calls, but I will always message the student back. And in some cases, I'm obligated to, tell their principals or guidance counselors if students are letting me know that they're thinking about harming themselves or something like that. And so I've had instances of that happening before too. Um, but I always message back. That's my thing. And it's me. It's me. And so if I get 60 kids or, 160 kids that'll message me after I get done with the school, it may take me a couple of days to get to all of them, but they know that I'll message them back.
That's really cool. That's cool. But you've got this wife and three kids at home. You did 150 speaking engagements last year. How do you balance speaking and family life?
That's a great question. I think for me and our relationship, I'm 27 years young, so I'm really young. We've got three beautiful kids, and right now our flow, I don't really call it balance because it's not really balance if I'm gone, 20 days in February like I was. That's not really balance. It's got to be a flow. So my flow is, hey, I want to go on 28 dates in a year with my wife. I want to go on 4 trips. So we'll go a trip with just me and my boys. She'll go on a trip with just her and her friends. We'll go on a couples trip, and then we go on a big family trip. This year we're doing two big families, like a Disney cruise and going to Brazil. And so we'll have those things scheduled out. Just had a pretty cool little staycation at home where my wife and I got to stay at a pretty nice hotel where we live in Charleston, South Carolina, and just go to a spa and hang out and have breakfast together without the kids screaming. So, like, there's different things we'll do to keep the love thriving, and the relationship in a good space. I have other rules where I love to make every single one of my kids' baseball games. So unfortunately, because I travel so much, my rule is, like, I got to make at least 80% of them. And so there'll be some days where I will literally drive 4 hours just to make it to my son's practice and be there for the practice, and then go drive 2.5, 3 hours to my next place and go to sleep, and go speak in the morning on like 4 hours of sleep. But I'd rather do that than miss my son's practice, knowing that I could have made it. So there's different things that I'll do, um, that I feel like keeps me there fully when I'm there, and then obviously when I'm gone, it's tough on them because I've got a 6-year old, a 2-year old, and an 8-month old, and then my wife is obviously amazing, and so having her, you know, get some help every now and then wherever we can to kind of keep her sane with these little kids is definitely important too.
Yeah. So being present is huge. You're setting an amazing example for your kids. Do you that now the 8-month old is not going to see this right now, but do you the older two understand what you're doing?
So my 6-year old does understand. My 2-year old doesn't know anything, right? He's
Yeah.
still trying to figure out how to put his shoes on the right feet. But our 6 year old, he does. So he doesn't fully know about why my mom was killed. He does know that my mom was killed because daddy doesn't usually like, I don't usually allow like Nerf guns and like all the, the guns and stuff in the house because I feel a little weird about guns. And so he understands that because daddy says, hey, you know, your grandma was taken away with the gun. That's why daddy doesn't like him too much. And so I've had to have those kind of conversations with him. I write children's books. So I've written 4 books. 3 of them are children's books. And in every single book, it's always multicultural themed, and unity is within those books somewhere. And when I read these books, I explain to him, hey, he this our main character was picked on because he's a little different, but in the end, they celebrated him and they wanted to learn more about where he was from. And the reason why Daddy wrote that is because my mom was taken away in a very sad way by someone who wasn't taught love like Daddy teaches it. So he knows why I speak. He doesn't know all the details, and I don't think he's at the age of hearing all those just yet. But he does have a pretty good understanding.
Yeah, that's really cool. I
Yeah.
think one of the most favorite things that I've experiences that I've had with trying to bring unity into life is when I went back for my bachelor's degree. We had people from all over in our classes. We had a gal from Sri Lanka, a couple from Kenya, Somalia. We all got together and we were all friends, and we had what we called the United Nations times that we would get together in the year, and we would each bring a food that was specific to our nationality, our upbringing. Me from Minnesota, I was brought tater tot hot dish. Yeah. And their kids loved it because they didn't have it on a regular basis. And my kids absolutely loved their foods and learning about them. And unity is not saying that we're all the same, because we're all the same on the inside, but we all have different life experiences, and honoring those and respecting those and learning about those is so important for just that whole acceptance piece.
I agree. And some of the elementary schools I'll go to, they'll do that same type of United Nations theme, and they'll have where one month a family from Nigeria will come in and they'll have jollof rice, or they'll have fufu or whatever it may be, and then you'll have somebody from Kansas City who's like, hey, I want to show you guys our barbecue. This is the best barbecue in the country. And then you got somebody coming from Georgia or South Carolina, like, hey, I don't know about that, right? And so I think it's a beautiful thing where you get to express where you're from, and other students will learn to celebrate it, right? Because at a young age, if you're not really cultured, and most people in your school look like you, and maybe they have the same sneakers you wear, or they play the same Fortnite video games you play, right? Then I think sometimes we'll have these certain stigmas or biases about students or people from other places. Until you get exposed to those things, you're like, man, okay, I didn't know this picanha from Brazil, this steak would be this good, right? And then you have it, and you're like, man, we got to step it up in the States a little bit when it comes to steak. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And if you could do it by having, by traveling, that's a luxury. That's beautiful. But sometimes it's opening up your laptop, looking up something on YouTube about a different country. And my sister's a prime example of that. She travels all the time. She was in Jamaica. She's going to Thailand. She was in Brazil. She stayed in Mexico for like a month. Speaks no Spanish, so I don't know how she was doing this, but she just likes to travel and learns about the world. And I think it makes our world smaller, and it makes you relate to people a little bit more.
Hmm. That's a really cool way to do that. I know when anytime we travel, we try to hit local places. It's our rule is that we don't hit chain restaurants. We like to hit the local cuisine, find out where the good stuff is, and actually try the food that those people in that area love to eat.
Yeah, and even asking somebody at the gas station, you stop for gas and you ask them, hey, what's the best sushi restaurant around here? Or what's the best diner that you guys have? And they'll give you something that they wouldn't just give the regular tourists. And so that's a little hack that I try to do. Anytime I go to a new city, I'll try to go to a local coffee shop because I like to drink coffee in the morning. So of course I got my Starbucks order, but if I have time, I want to make sure I can go to a local spot and support there.
Yeah, yeah. I did that in Kansas City. I actually asked people, I'm like, "Where's the best barbecue?" And I went and I found it, and man, it was good.
Oh yeah, they got some good spots there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So all of your favorite, are there any favorite places, United States or elsewhere that you've gone to and spoken?
Yeah, I got to speak in Costa Rica, which was amazing. Got to bring my wife. Every now and then, I'll bring my family like twice a year, and so my wife's got to pick it out. If it's February in Minnesota, we're probably not making that one because it's freezing, right?
Yeah.
But right, maybe in the summer, maybe I have a July engagement or August. I think that she would love to go there. Um, but I think Costa Rica was a lot of fun. I got to speak at Pepperdine last year and brought my whole family out to Malibu and got to stay there for some days and go to Disney out there, with my whole family. So that was fun. I'd say any place that is kid friendly would be good. If I have an engagement in Vegas, I'm probably not bringing my kids to that one, right? So my favorite engagements are the ones I can bring my whole family to. Um, and I do love where I live though. So I love where I live in Charleston, South Carolina. And if I didn't, I thought about moving to Atlanta because the direct flights, the Delta hub, and but I love where I live. So
Mhm.
in a perfect world, I would speak one time somewhere else and then one time at home every week, and that'd be it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking with someone from the UK this morning, you said they might have different issues. Are there any places that you find are more open to the idea of unity and such?
Yeah, oddly enough, I think most places are open to the message. Um, I actually just met with our president maybe like 2 months ago, and I'm asking this guy like, "Hey, why does it feel like we're so divided?" And he asked me to look at the commercials during the next time I'm watching sports. He says, "You'll see how most like there's so many cultures that we display in America now, and there's interracial couples. There's all this. He's like, none of this was happening, 50 years ago. He said we're a lot more together than we were, but unfortunately, the media will make us seem like we're not. And our president's saying this, and I'm like, man, is he supposed to be saying that, right? I feel like you could do something about that, right? But anyway, I do think most places in our country, we want to be united. Do we want to think the same? No, we're not going to ever think the same. I don't want to be in a place where you have to think the same. That's not, where we live. Um, but I do think that most people in the states want to be united. And even if you're a Yankees fan, I'm a Red Sox fan, we want to have banter and talk back and forth and maybe jaw at each other, but all in good fun. So I think that's universal. And I haven't been to the UK yet, so I guess we'll see when I get over there. But they definitely also have, the same type of want to be, together. I think every country does. Even third world countries that are struggling, I think nobody wants to be divided. So I think that's universal.
Mhm. Good. That's good. Where can people find you if they want to learn more or they have any questions for you?
Yeah, all my social medias are C Singleton underscore two. Or if you just type in Chris Singleton, I'm verified on all of them. You can just usually the second or third Chris Singleton, right? I don't know which one I am. But not to be confused with Chris Stapleton though, because some schools will introduce me as Chris Stapleton and I say that's the wrong guy.
You don't have the guitar?
But nope, can't sing at all. So I'd let a lot of people down. But yeah, Chris Singleton is the name. And like I mentioned, I message everybody back. So if you want to talk to me, you want to ask me a question, you can definitely do it there.
That is awesome. And I want to be respectful of your time today too. Any last pieces of wisdom that you want to share with our listeners?
I think, I know this podcast is about mindset. I think the greatest piece of advice and the greatest quote that I've received when it comes to mindset is a guy named Charles Swindle from Texas. And he said life is 10% action and 90% reaction. And what he meant by that is 10% of our lives we don't choose, but 90%, the majority is how we respond to the things that we don't choose. And so in my case, I didn't choose that my mom was taken away because of the color of her skin, but my 90% is promising my mom and my church family, hey, I'm going to go out in the world and I'm going to spread love and unity and remind people we don't choose our skin color, don't choose our first language, don't choose where we're born or who we're born to. So I would never hate them for those things. And hopefully they never hate me for them just as well. So that's my 90%. And I think I challenge people to always think about life as, hey, this is my 10. What am I going to do with my 90? If we think that way, we'll always see the glass for half full, and we'll be grateful that we have a glass in the first place.
Absolutely. I have one sign here behind me that I used to keep in my office. Attitude is everything. Choose a good one. That's the part that we can't choose.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today, Chris. It's been amazing talking to you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this with others to help me continue on with my mission to help people live healthier, happier lives. Go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to see what I'm up to and get links to all the social medias there. See you next time.